Dear participants, welcome to NRC, Dr. Harisingar Vishwavidyalaya, Sagar, Madhya Pradesh. I am Sipsankar Jana from the Department of Sociology of the same university. I will be discussing on welfare policies and development discourse in post-independent India. So, when you discuss about the welfare policies, issues and challenges, it directly relates with certain kind of a development process relates with justice and equality with making democracy at work. So, before going to discuss about the welfare policies and the ideology of welfare policies in post-independent India, first we have to look into what was actually the debate was going on in between our leaders like Gandhi's, Ambedkar and Nehru's on how to make India free from inequality which is affected with socio-cultural inequality and a certain kind of justice to give those peoples. It is not getting freedom from Britishers, but also getting freedom from a certain kind of traditional evil elements which is caste inequalities or gender inequalities or certain kind of inequalities based on minority issues. So, when you look at the debate, just I am going to give a certain kind of a debate with point wise. The first is, if you look at Ambedkar's debate on Indian inequalities, then Ambedkar says that Indian society is suffer from a certain kind of structural inequality related to the caste. So, that is the important issues what Ambedkar highlights in the concept of Dalit, and what Ambedkar says that those group who are actually belongs to lower caste, they are actually suffering from socio-economic and cultural inequalities. So, it is one kind of debate what Ambedkar was talking about, ki Indian inequality is based on caste, and the most freedoms that we want is a certain kind of freedom from the caste inequality and the purity and pollution issues. Now, look at what Gandhi says on this context. What Gandhi says ki no, justice is related with moralities, and what Gandhi says ki social justice only comes when a civilization is based on collective moralities. That is why Gandhi was critiquing to Western civilization and was saying inequality creates because there is a greedful civilizations having scientific and technology exploiting the other society through the profit accumulations process. So, in this context what Gandhi says, look at Indian society. Indian society was having a social justice because our society is based on a certain kind of collective moralities or collective social justice, where individual belongs to have a certain kind of contribution for the social structure as a whole. So, in this context, when you look at the debate between Ambedkar and Gandhi, when Ambedkar was talking about structural inequality, Gandhi was talking about a certain kind of inequality which is related with a certain kind of ideology and thinking process with the civilizations. But if you look at what Nehru says about social justice, what Nehru says, ki justice can only comes when there is structural transformations through different socio-cultural value systems. That is what Nehru says, ki if you bring modernization to Indian society, then it leads to a certain kind of diversification of traditional occupations to modern occupations, where class will emerge. When the class will emerge, then the structural inequality automatically will be vanished. In this context, the equality comes through perpetual democracy. That means, if you go for modernizations and state a certain kind of democratic agents for improving the people's the socio-economic condition of the populations of Indian society, that leads to a certain kind of structural transformations with cultural transformations. That is why Gandhi was talking about modernization can be a helpful path to make or to give social justice to the peoples, those who are actually affected by the established traditional value systems. In this context, look at the post-independent scenario and the ideology of social justice and welfare policies for those people who are actually culturally marginalized, socially marginalized in the context of caste or in the context of institutional inequality like gender inequality. So, if you look at the construction of our constitutions and the debate on constitutions, and after the debate we came with a certain kind of looking at the structural condition of Indian society at 1947, then we developed a preambles. On that preambles, what should be our ideology of constitutional values and how we are going to practice these constitutional values in the context of the rural and urban societies of India. Now, if you look at the preamble, then we will find there are three parts of the preamble. First is promissory part, and second is declaration part, and third is implementation part. Now, promissory part means what? Even though India got independent at 1947, but the actually independent of the population who are actually affected by the inequality, different types of inequality. That's why, that means most of the 80% of Indian populations were affected by a certain kind of British created poverty. At the same time, majority of the population was affected by the Varna and caste inequality and hierarchy and pollutions. So, in this context, what the state was going to make promise to those populations and making democracy with development project, that what kind of promise you are going to do, that is a development of constitution with articles and legal issues, like if you look at article 15, article 16, article 17 and the fundamental rights from article 19 to article 29, you will find that means we are going to give promise to the Indian citizens that now state is here to protect your right. Now, the state is here to improve your socio-economic condition. Now, the state is here to give you justice through different welfare policies that the state is going to promise in front of the citizen of India. Now, making promise at work or making promise at success, we need a certain kind of declaration part. In this declaration part, we have a constitutional part like part, there are 4 parts with a schedule, and in this context, we are going to develop a certain kind of mechanisms. Through these mechanisms, we introduce various welfare policies for those people who are actually marginalized and they are not able to come into the mainstream to practice democracy or to include into democracy for the nation building project. That's why we had a certain kind of declarations part. In this declarations part, we have a certain kind of legislative body, we have certain kind of executive bodies, and we have a certain kind of judiciary bodies having a very institutional mechanism of 5-year planning and development and different ministries to make declarations of policies and programs to improve the socio-economic condition of the populations and giving them freedom from the traditional based inequalities. Now, then the third part is implementation part. That means we promise them and we make declaration of certain kind of welfare policy and programs, but how to going to implement these programs. And then we have a certain kind of executive bodies, we have a state agencies, and that state agencies, they are going to introduce these welfare policies, making practice of these welfare policies at the ground levels. So, there are 3 parts. With the 3 parts, we develop a certain kind of welfare policies approach, and our slogan was democracy with development. In this context, if you look at the Nehruvian period, the ideology of welfare policy was a certain kind of nationalistic policies of development. In this nationalistic policies, the first priority was to bring the marginalized population into the democratic frameworks and making them as a participant in the nation building project. So, in this context, we had a certain kind of development with a certain kind of suitable models of development. Because you know, if you look at the era of 1940s to 1950s, the decolonization period happened, and in this era, the Britishers left most of the countries, and after that, a development era begins where the mostly newly state or countries getting freedom from the Britishers, they started to make their agenda of development. So, it is called 1940s to 1980s, the end of the Second World War, and the development regime begins. And within these development regimes, in the context of these newly created states, newly independent states, in front of them there are only one path of development, that is called modernization path, and that modernization path is looking at the introducing of democracy, emerging of modern state. At the same time, you have to go for industrializations. At the same time, you go for a market capitalist economy, and at the same time, you have to improve the communications, rural infrastructures, and making the attitudes and cultural values of the population of their society as modern. So, in this context, even though there is a modernization project, but within this modernization project, there is an ideological differences. Like if you look at the capitalist economy like American model, and if you look at the socialistic models like Russian model, and you will find there are 2 paths. Even though these 2 models believes on industrializations, these 2 models believes on democracy and the state, but their debate is ownership of controlling the market ownership of controlling the industries. So when if you look at the American model of development, it is followed by Adam Smith, the Wealth of Nations, and what Adam Smith says, ki you have to give a certain kind of laissez-faire economy, that means free market economy, and you have to attract the individual for the investment, and their profit accumulations will lead to the GDP growth of a country, and which will lead to the creation and development of the wealth of that countries. So in this context, what America follows, a capitalist economy, in this market is free for them, and there is a certain kind of the pre-investment of the private investors. But if you look at, there are another kind of models of development like Russian model, what they says ki no, when the society is affected by, majority of the population is affected by a certain kind of inequalities like institutional inequalities, maybe structural inequalities, maybe individual inequalities. In this context, you cannot go for private laissez-faire economy, because it may lead to again the gap between the poor and the rich, because the minority percent of the rich persons, they will go for profit accumulations and the gap will increase. So in this context, when there is a large population is affected by inequalities, certain kind of inequalities, so you have to go for a certain kind of collective ownership productions. That means state will be the major ownership of industrialization process and the market. That means market will be governed by the state, and the profit will come from that market or industries, may be distributed with the populations, and the inequality and social justice will be given for them. So in this context, what India will do? Because look at, we have two models, one is socialist and another is capitalist. One say state will control the industries and market process, another says ki there is a private property, you should give the space for the private peoples and private investors. Now if you look at Indian context, when India got independent in 1947, then we will look at the GDP of India at that time, that means 1% GDP, what Atul Kohli says in his book State and Poverty in India, that British left us with 1% GDP. At the same times, we had a large populations affected by the different types of inequalities, poverty and hungers. So in this context, which kind of models we will follow? Because we need also GDP growth, because if you are not going to for growing a GDP, then we cannot able to distribute, or you cannot able to invest certain kind of welfare policies on the population, those who are actually not the part of the production process. So you need a certain kind of GDP growth. At the same time, you cannot go for a private property like capitalist economy, because our 80% populations are affected by a poverty or certain kind of inequality. So in this context, the Nehruvian era followed a certain kind of economic model which is called the mixed economy policy. In this mixed economy policy, we divided three zones. The first zone is that is called basic necessity sectors for the every individual of a society, like health, like educations, like communications, and that health, education and communication should be controlled by state, or should be controlled by a certain state mechanism where private individual cannot enter. Because if private individual will enter, then most of the populations, due to the private industries, the cost will increase, like health cost will be increased, education cost will be increased, communication cost will be increased, then this 80% population again, they will be deprived from getting that kind of opportunities. So in this context, the state will be ownership with this zone. Now second is, there is a second zone which is called the development of heavy industries, because India got independence and you need a heavy industries like steel plants, because without steel plants you cannot go for modernization of our agricultural sectors, like developing the technologies like tractors, all these things. So in this context, we go for a certain kind of heavy industries, and in this context heavy industries, there is a mixed economic policy where we have a certain kind of state boundaries, and we have also given space to the private sectors, they can come and they can invest. So in this context, there is both public sector and private sector. That's why we have a Navratna steel plants, 9 steel plants, which is regulated by the state ownerships, and there are so many steel plants, private steel plants like Tata, like Birla, all these. But what is, again there is a clause that there is an industrial policies, and in this industrial policies, we introduce a license policy. That means we have given space for the private sector to enter into these heavy industries, but we are not giving absolute freedom for them. We have a certain kind of closed system for them. That means any individual who will invest in heavy industries, they have to apply, and they have to apply for license. After getting license, they can enter to the investment process. So why you did these things? Because again there is a social justice. That means we are having a novel idea that only one individual cannot grow all these industrial sectors. Only one individual cannot capture all these industrial sectors. That means we have a distributive justice to the capitalist also. That means we have a certain kind of limitation for them. Now second is the license Raj policy was there because to reduce the regional inequality. That means suppose Bombay is having one industry, now next we are not going to permit any kind of investor to do invest industries in Bombay. We will give them another kind of regions, another regions for this. So there will be regional equality will be maintained. There will be regional balance of the market and infrastructure will be maintained. So there is a mixed economy in the second stage. Now the third stage is called small scale industries. Here both private and both public sectors are free and they can come and they can invest for these small sectors. So in this context, in mixed economy, what we developed a certain kind of welfare policy with social justice with an economic model. That means the state will control a certain kind of areas where the most of the populations will be getting opportunities like health, education and communication, where private sector cannot enter. Now second is heavy industries, because the heavy industries is a nationalistic project. In this nationalistic project, first we have to discuss about the economic progress of the country. At the same time, the state controlled or state owned steel plants, the profit will be distributed in health, education and communication sectors. So in this context, look at the welfare policy and social justice. Now the second most important social justice was in Nehruvian period is land reforms. That we know that there was a highly inequality of land ownerships in Indian society after in post independent India. So we went for a certain kind of land reforms movements where we have legalized that certain sections of the land will be a certain amount for the per family, per individuals. That's why we introduced ceiling of land holding, at the same time consolidations of the land holding. So in this context, there was a slogan is called land to the tillers. That means those who are actually cultivators that didn't have the land. So you introduce a certain kind of mechanism to distribute the land among those population, those who are actually not having the land. So it is a kind of social justice with creating or making active agent of the democracy by giving land or certain kind of means of production to those have not groups. So in this context, the land reform is certain kind of a nationalistic project of connecting the landless populations into a democratic systems by giving economic justice like land reforms. So this is the one kind of justice. So if you look at the Nehruvian period, the welfare policies was a total kind of make a nation building project with democracy and development projects. So in this context, Nehru was looking or targeting individuals as an agent of national development. So in this context, those who are actually are not able to participate in the nation building process, we are going to give a certain kind of welfare mechanism to them. But if you look at the another kind of changing ideology of welfare policies, if you look at the transformations of nationalistic project to the popular policies, popular projects like Indira Gandhi's. So Indira Gandhi's Garibi Hatao programs, it was a certain kind of shifting from Nehruvian welfare policy to a certain kind of individual centric, group centric, village level welfare policies. If you look at the transformations is here Indira Gandhi was not looking that individual is an active agent for the nation building project, but individual is a lack of material conditions. They didn't have a material conditions and they are poor. That's why state is there to give you the material justice, like providing Indira Awas Yojana, like small farmers guarantee loan guarantee Yojana, like National Rural Employment Guarantee programs, like TRIGEM, all these things. That means targeting this section of the groups of the rural populations and transforming the nationalistic project into a certain kind of popular based political project. So in this context, what Indira Gandhi was trying to conceptualize welfare policies as the poor people of India as a recipient of development, not as a practitioners or not as a active participants of the development. So that was the case in Indira Gandhi's times. But if you look at the welfare policies after 1990s, that means in post 1990s era. Now if you look at the welfare policies and the shifting of ideology in post 90s period, because the post 90s or after 1990s, it is a historical landmark in India's planning and development process. If you look at the introduction of LPG, like liberalization, privatization and globalizations, and opening up our economy from a closed economy to an open economy, and just closing down our industrial policies and closing down the license policies, that means we went for a laissez-faire economy and we started to motivate to the capitalist from the outside of countries to come and invest in our development projects. So in this context, what we found, the state ideology for welfare policies is declined. The state ideologies for poor peoples, like investment in health sector, like investment in education sector, like investment in communication sector, also declined. That means the first journey in mixed economy policies, where there was the absolute control by the state, now due to the liberalization process, now the private sector also they are making inclusion in these sectors to investment. That means what? State now going to decline their investment in these sectors. So in this context, now the poor peoples are now getting deprived by due to the cost of the health, the cost of health expenditures, the cost of the education expenditures. So if you look at the after 90s, the declining of the welfare policies, there was a vast inequality increased in most of the rural Indias. So in this context, so what happened? There was a debate came into what happened after 90s, because there is an purely a shifting of ideology in planning and development process from a certain kind of welfare based social justice project to a certain kind of market oriented capitalist based project. So in this sense, the most of the populations are due to the increasing of the inequalities, there was a declining of the purchasing power parities among the most of the rural small and peasant households. So there was an inequality increase. So the economists, they came with the debate, the sociologists, they came with the debate ki after post 90s, even though India's GDP growth rate increased, but inequality also increased. In this context, what should be the role of the state? Because state is not going to having a certain kind of absolute mechanism power to control the market, because market now become liberal, market now become global. So in this context, how to prepare our individuals, those who are actually facing inequality, to enter in the global market system, how states should play a role to make capable to them. So in this context, if you look at the theory of Amartya Sen, the capability approach, what Amartya Sen says, if you look at the neoliberal economy, the state should change their welfare policy ideology. The state should not go to give only the material opportunities. The state should not go for giving them a reservations policy only, but state to make a certain kind of capability approach. That means individuals should be develop their capacity to participate in the global economy process. So in this context, states should invest more on education, states should invest more on a certain kind of health sectors, and states should invest more on to reducing the gender inequalities. These are the three main important criteria of capability approach. The first is education, second is health, and third is creating gender equality, and fourth is creating equity, gender equity. So in this context, empowerment is one of the important concept came into the development process. So after the published of capability approach, development as a freedom by Amartya Sen, and there is a shifting of paradigm of development. If you look at the shifting, the development paradigm from modernization to certain kind of, you went for sustainable development, then we went for participatory approach to development, then we came with a human resource development. And this human resource development is a suitable approach to make individual as a capable individual to participate in the global market. So our welfare policy has been changed. The welfare policy change from giving a certain kind of development opportunity to the individual to shifting an ideology, creating individual as an active producer and contributor of the development process. So in this context, if you discussed the debate of Manrega, Manrega is one kind of a starting point of increasing purchasing power parity among the rural population, those who actually suffering of inequality and they are suffering or they are excluded from the global market. Now state is going to give them a certain kind of purchasing power to them so that they can enter to the market systems. Like you can look at the various flagship programs like midday meal, like Manrega. These are the role of state. They can target to the individual. By targeting this individual, they can create a certain kind of direct approach to create a capacity like purchasing power among them among the rural population. But if you look at the most important policy approach, welfare policies approach that the recent government adopted for making individuals suitable in the neoliberal market, that means the shifting ideology of welfare policies from individual as a recipient of development to individual not only as a consumer of market economy but also an active contributor in the market economy, that is called skill development. In this skill development, what government India is trying to do, that means you are not going to treat individual as a recipient of development. You are not going to treat individual as a diseased persons. That diseased person must be cured by a certain kind of Garibi Hatao program. But individual you are treating as an active agent and injecting any kind of skill among themselves. By injecting skill, now they can develop their entrepreneurship qualities so that they become a producer of the global market, not as a consumer. That means what? If you make one individual skill, that means that person can give employment to the other populations. So in this case, it is a certain kind of, we are not making individual or giving employment to them, but you are making individual as a creator of employment. That is the ideological shift of the welfare policies from a certain kind of traditional mechanism of welfare policies that India followed up to 80s, then skill development approach. So in this context, if you look at the concept coming as a nano entrepreneurships, that means we are not developing or you are not believing or you are not depending on small scale industries, but we are also coming down to other very small sectors like nano entrepreneurship. That means you are targeting individuals to a certain sectors, and by sectors that we are giving skill to them through various training process. By training process, we are making individual as an entrepreneur with these particular sectors. That's why if you look at in higher educations in recent times, we have a different schemes like community college, and through this community college, we have a targeting different small areas. In the small areas, we are giving training to that people and creating a certain kind of skill among that people so that he or she entered to as a producer or as an entrepreneur in the global market economy. Now look at that, the shifting of ideology is certain kind of making individual as a producer, not as a consumer. So this is one kind of welfare policies. Now second kind of welfare policies, if you look at the right to education and social justice, because it becomes a very debatable subject that due to the privatizations, vast majority of the rural populations are depriving from getting the educational quality of private educations. That's why Indian government started to introduce a certain kind of right to educations in 2013 Act. That means it is a fundamental rights. It is a fundamental rights. At the same time, that means there must be a certain portion of reservation in private sector for the marginalized section of the populations like SCs and STs, so that that group of populations can enter and get the opportunity of the quality of the privatizations of educations. So in this context, what we discussed, dear participants, look at the ideology of the welfare policy has been changed in the context of the changing ideology of political economy, not only national but also international arena. If you look at the welfare policies and ideology from 1947 to 1964, Nehruvian era, and we will find a certain kind of policy shifting of ideology in Indira Gandhi era, and we will find the shifting of ideology of welfare policies in post 90s and shifting of ideology and welfare policies after introduction of the skill development. You will find a different kind of ideological shifting in the context of the changing of the market structures in international arena. Because in the first phase, the most major objectives of the Indian government at the time of independence, that the national economy should be increased, at the same time making all the populations as equal in the nation building project. So our welfare ideology was different. But if you look at the changing ideology by Indira Gandhi, that means it is just changing a certain kind of political discourse in a development project. Now if you look at after 90s, you will find due to the changing structure of the market, we went for a global economics structure. That's why you have to make our populations not as a recipient of the development, but as a participant of the global economy. So in this context, the ideology changed. So look at that policy approach changes, welfare and ideology approaches changes. At the same times, our interventions to inequality and social justice also changes. Thank you.